Hey guys, Mike Taylor, aka BattleshipCobra. Today I'm going to cover importing item type and service type invoices through the DTW. Lots of people have asked me about importing invoices or other documents through the DTW, the Data Transfer Workbench. It's a good way to get information from a spreadsheet into SAP. Commonly, I'll use the service type invoices for opening balances. I should do a video on how to do opening balances from scratch, but this is just a good start. If you need to import any document, it's basically going to be the same process. Let's jump in and get started. We're going to get started where most DTW projects begin, and that's in Excel. So I have my particular set of templates that I'm going to use. If you do have the Data Transfer Workbench installed on your machine, you can go to SAP Business One, Templates, Sales, AR Invoice, and you can look at these. You can see there's a lot more than what I'm going to show you. Today I'm just going to use the header, OINV, and then the rows, INV1. So this is going to be just a simple, it's simple, but you can build from it and you can get very complicated, as you can see here. So you could use these. Let's quickly look at the header here. So you can see a couple different things about this. There's two rows, and some of the rows and some of the headers, some of the rows have different names here. So what the DTW wants to see is the first one, and then the actual database field is the second row. So that's really the biggest difference here. So you could put notes in the second column or row. It's not gonna, the DTW is not even gonna look at that, but it's nice also to have like, hey, this is the database field, and this is the technically the DI API object, whatever, property dimension or whatever it is, that it needs to see. Why is it broken up to be as complicated as possible? I don't know. I mean, that's just what developers do. They make things more complicated. So this is the database, and then this is what you need to see. So any of these, if you do have like a query or something, you can search and you'll find your query here, but what your database query would use in the second row, but then you have to use the first row in order to import it through the DTW, okay? So hopefully that's not too confusing. And some of these actually have useful information in them, and you can see the different types. So you can see document type, edit, and you could see that what it's expecting is either the document item or it's a service type. So those are the things you're gonna see when you look at mine there. So you could see in my service example, document number, the type, I'll do the service type, series, -1, so it'll just have no series, it'll be manual. Because I'm gonna import these this way, I don't love to do this, it's just people will ask you to do this. Typically, I'll usually do it in the numeric card for the actual reference. But this is the way that you would import them to give it a manual number saying that it's handwritten. I'm going to do automatic numbering with the item type just to show you both ways of doing it. So we could see series has to be -1, handwritten is yes. Yeah, see it shows you that a T no, T yes. I'll do my numeric card and then my doc date. So you can see the format that it wants, and I'll move this over a little bit here. So YYY, MMDD needs to be that way. Same with the tax file, tax date, due date, card code. Just need a card code, and then I added a UDF. So I use this one for data load, which is part of a little B1UP thing that I do. But anyway, just to show you that you can just put the UDFs, put a UDF there, as long as the UDF is on the header, i.e. not the rows, you can include it there. You will then also need your rows, which is INV1. Again, if you're familiar more so with your queries, INV1 is the rows. So you'll see with these ones, it's very simple. We're going to have the document number, which is one header, and then we're going to have one row per document. Okay. One row per document is just going to say opening balance. And then we are going to put the account code that we're linking this to. We're going to put the tax code, and then we're going to put the total in there. So we're going to get 3 service type documents linked to the specific system code, system account code. exempt from tax with the total, and then they're going to have their respective NUMIC cards. So this could be, you could do this as automatic, as I'm going to show you in the second example, and then you can use NUMIC card, which is what I do normally recommend for the original customer invoice when you're doing opening balances. This is just to show you how to do it if you want to do it manually. Okay, so as with all of your DTW imports, save your spreadsheet because you can't make any changes once you've saved this to a file. So now we're going to go File, Save As, Save PC, save it on the desktop. I have import, save it as a tab delimited, and I use OINV, INV1 for my service type, and then I use 2 OINV and 2 INV1 for my second one. I'm going to save it as OINV. Yes, yes. Then I'm going to go to INV1, File, Save As, this one. And we're going to save this as INV. So you might think, oh, this looks like it's working still, but this is not anything. This is saved to your text file. So if you make a bunch of changes here, you work in here, and then you go to import and do all this stuff, and then you make changes here. It's not changing it to your spreadsheet. It looks like your spreadsheet, but these don't exist. None of these tabs exist with the text file. So like I always say, close, just abandon it completely. It's gone as of right now. You can always reopen it. So I'm going to reopen it. So now it's back to your spreadsheet because you haven't saved it there. So this is good. So we have our 2 examples here. OINV, INV1, these are tab delimited, exactly how I would show you. So just a note on these dates, if you want to do these dates, so let's say it's July 3rd today, equals, so you can't leave this as a date. You might think, oh, this is good enough, DTW will translate it. DTW does not translate anything. It needs to be in text in this format. So we go, this is a trick to do it, equals text, open bracket, the field you're going to convert. So I would usually just do a column, convert them to dates, and then delete the original column. Bracket or quotes, 1, 2, 3, 4, MMDD. So it's going to just change it to this exact format, and boom. So then you have this converted to it. Once you've converted these, copy the whole range, copy, right click, paste as values. Now it's no longer a formula. It's literally text, and then you can remove your original date. Okay, so remember, equals text, blah, 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 and then you're good to go. So that's how I saved it in this. That's the trick of how you save it for the DTW. Okay, we'll just close that. So what you want to do now, run your DTW, right click, always run your DTW as administrator. If you can't run it as administrator, it's probably not going to work. So unfortunately, you need to get this installed where you can run it as administrator, whether that's local administrator, but you do need to run it as administrator because it has to write to some logs and do some other things. As a customer, should you have access to the DTW? Definitely, I think so. You're not going to corrupt your database because the DTW always requires the same validation as if a human was entering it by hand. So it's not going to cause issues to import it that way. I have never seen it go corrupt. I'm sure people have examples where it goes corrupt. Should you back up your database before you do an import? Yes. Should you try it in the test database before? Definitely. But it's kind of like, beware, you should do this in a test database to prepare your files. Start with a small file, which I've done, only 3 examples, and then move up to a bigger file so you know what you're doing, because you can't just undo it in a lot of cases. You can't delete invoices. You'd have to go through and cancel them all. Okay, log in. Import transactional data. I'm adding it. Sales, invoice, next. I'm only using the documents in the document lines. Documents, desktop, OINV, and the lines are INV1. Next. So you want to see that these are mapped properly. Again, if you've heard me talk about this, if these are not mapped, you did something wrong. You need to go back to your file. Something is very wrong. Oh, another thing too, when choosing your files is make sure that you select the tab delimited. I think I forgot that in the previous video. You need to select this as text tab limited. If you select this as CSV, it's not even going to see the tab files because they're text files and they're different. So make sure you switch that to text. Next, again, look at these. If these aren't mapped, you can manually map them. It's just not going to work. So I would say go back, start from scratch, go back to your database, or go back to your spreadsheet, remap them, make sure you have the exact name based on the template that you need. Next, okay, so I would usually do ignore up to 10 errors, depending on what you're doing. You don't want to trigger a 10,000 invoice import and then have it running forever, and then it's like error, 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 because it'll just keep, if you allow all errors, then you have 1,000 records and you screwed up one little thing, or there's one comma in there, like a tab in one of the things or whatever, it'll just run for those 1,000 and you're just gonna be sitting there and wasting your time. So you can either, start with 10 errors. It's gonna run pretty quickly, and then just run your simulation. So I got 0 errors. Boom. Done. If this did have an error, you can filter for failed, and then you can view what it says. Not a lot of the time. Sometimes it's clear, sometimes it's not. Use my exact template, and usually it's gonna work fine. Then we go and push next and import. So this is the real deal. It runs through your transaction notification. It'll give you the exact error as if a human had done it. It'll run through your post-transaction notification too, fixing up any of the UDFs or fields you have validated. And then it's imported into there. So we see we have 3 successful. So let's pop this back open. Go look at this. Ding, 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 ding. Find it. So obviously with the handwritten, it's this. So we had this on 01. That's when I prepared the files. You can see 01. And then we have our GL accounts here, AROB, 2 and 3. So you might ask me, oh, how did I get this row level system code? Well, this is also a database thing. So you think, why can't I just put 90100-00? It just doesn't work like that because of it's a segmented chart of accounts. I guess if you don't have a segmented chart of accounts, you can put just the code in there. But you need to go Tools, Queries, Query Generator, OACT. That's the accounts, like the chart of accounts table. Just add code and name. Execute, and then you need to look for the exact account that you're using, and then find that code. So I just had an opening balance one in this account. So opening balances was, oh yeah, it's AR opening, AROB. So I put it to this one, right click, sys, blah, blah, blah. This is what SAP is expecting, even though it shows the 9001, 000, whatever. You have to use this. Normally, you don't have to do this, only for the service type, the service types where you're importing it specifically to a GL account. You can end up doing this on an item type. Generally, you don't need to. Okay, so that's all good for the service types. The service types are like, are you going to use these all the time? Probably mostly just for opening balances. Again, I'm going to do another video on the whole process of opening balances, but it'll just include a reference to this video. Secondly, we're going to do an item type. So the header is really the same. You just have to say that the type is an item type. And with this, you could just put docnum1, doc number 2. Because this is going to just add it in the sequence of what you had put as the normal default sequence for your user. So this way, if you don't have it handwritten with series 0, it's just going to go, what's the default for this user? And it's going to increment them. So this is probably the more normal way to do it. So you're going to have the document items, numeric card, whatever you want. You don't have to have some of these. You do have to have the ones, I think minimum you need doc date, tax date, due date, card code, type, and doc num. You don't necessarily need the UDF, but you can put the UDFs at the header level, and then I just added the reference as well. For the 2 invoice, same thing. So I have 1, 2, 3, and then I just put bike, C bike, C bike. So this will be, if you saw my DTW bill of materials import video, I'm just using an adult bike and child bikes. So we'll have 1 row for bike, 2 child bikes. You could put 1 child bike row with 2 if you wanted, blah, blah, blah. And then it has a reference to the second document. This isn't going to make document number 2. It's going to put them in the sequence linking the header with the rows, and then these particular items with the quantity, the price, and the tax code. If you look at the line num, you can see here, it has little instructions. It should be an integer which begins with 0. It is just for update. Keep it empty when you import. So when you import it, when you import to add, it's going to automatically just assume these are being added and at that. So it's really easy, very, very straightforward for this. This is kind of like the minimum what you would want. Okay, so I already will save these files, save as, switch to tab delimited, save it, close your spreadsheet, remember. Right click, run as administrator. I already have these prepared, OINV, to OINV. Actually, you know what I don't know what I'll do. I'll just put these for today. What's today, 3? So I'm just gonna copy this, paste. I'll just paste. So I'll just put these as of today. Oh, that's the wrong one. Put them here. Dang it. Actually, I can just take this whole thing here. Right. Paste. Okay, perfect. So this will just be for today, so I'll update them. So we're doing today, so this PC. We want to save it as tab delimited. Well, first, remember, save this one, because once you save this as a text file, it won't save anything else. This PC, desktop, this one, tab delimited, and this is the 2OINV, 2INV. 2OINV, save, 2INV1, save. Close this, remember, because if you look at the top, here, now it says 2INV1.text. Any change I'm making here is only changing that text file, not doing anything to the original spreadsheet. Close that, run your DTW as administrator, import transactional data next, adding, we're going to sales, we're going to invoice, we're going to next. We're just doing the document header and the lines. 2 OINV and INV1. You can name them whatever you want, doesn't matter. Remember to put your tab delimited there. Next, everything lines up. Perfect. Next, we'll run the simulation. We get 0 errors. It's going to make 2. So we're going to go next, import. Runs good. So we're going to go back to SAP here, find it as of today. Fine. So we should have a couple. So I'm going to import this or double click that. So we have adult bike, the correct prices. Boom, test item 1, next. And you can see this just made it in the sequence that you would have if you made a new one. So if I made a new one, 160786 would be the next one. So that makes it easy if you want to add it in sequence with your other documents. Thank you guys very much. DTW is a bit of black magic, as I kind of explain. Use my text examples or use my spreadsheet examples. I will link them below. It's a good place to start. Run through them. Have a simplified example. Don't try the most complicated example and then complain it's too complicated. Break it down to as little columns as possible. Think of the steps that you would do and what you would kind of put in the forms if you were actually doing it manually. So obviously with a, if you're trying to make an invoice, you need a delivery date. Try to make a delivery date. Try to make an invoice without a delivery date. It'll just give you a warning, right? So you have to make sure that you follow the same rules, validating it the same way as if a human was making it. So try to think like that. Break it down. Very simple. Do 1 document, do 2 documents. Do it in the test database. Test it. Prepare your file. Run your simulation, back of your database, do it outside of normal business hours if you can, import it, and then you cross-check whatever, a number of them to make sure that you imported them correctly. So hope that helps you guys. Thank you very much. BattleshipCobra.com, like, subscribe, click the notification bell if you don't come to YouTube very frequently. It will send you an email whenever I upload a video. That way you don't have to come and check. You can also add me on LinkedIn, linkedin.battleshipcobra.com. That goes right to my profile. Add me there, and then I will always post a post on LinkedIn because most of my audience is pretty active-ish on LinkedIn, so that's where I kind of go. That's it for now. Thank you guys very much. Take it easy.
They don't wanna see me make it, they don't wanna see me care. Anytime I make some progress, I can see that they compare. I think everyone's against me, maybe